Okay, we are recording right now, so we can start at your convenience.
No, to start.
Okay. He said we could start.
We can start at your convenience.
Okay, as always, our committee that meets here on Wednesday night, we always start with Pledge of Allegiance, so if everyone can stand. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll start the meeting tonight with a roll call. Melinda,
Alder Eck.
Alder Eck, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We have two excused absences tonight, Alder Weary and Alder Stoyer. And we have Alder Stevens stepping in as a proxy or whatever so we can hold our meeting and get some business done. So, you're here? Okay. Start out by the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve? It's you and I tonight.
You gotta take turns.
I don't know, do you vote?
He doesn't usually, the chairs usually don't.
Yeah, usually we do it.
They vote, but they don't do the motions. It's really how we've been doing it.
Okay, that's approved. Let's move on to regular business. Number one, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Galvin to convert one of the two of the tennis courts at Astor Park into pickleball courts. We have a motion to open the floor. If we have people that want
Well-
to talk to this, or?
I think usually the directors speak.
Yeah, I mean, I would just recommend we let Alder Galvin speak and talk about the issue, and then I can go from there.
Sure, okay. Do it the opposite way today.
Thanks, Chair. Basically, pickleball is a sport that, everyone thought was a geriatric type thing. It's expanding. You're seeing many more young people playing it. It's becoming very competitive. I've seen tennis courts converted throughout Brown County. Kiwanis Park in Alloway, Fort Howard in De Pere. I was just out by my in-laws out off of Lineville Road. They've got converted tennis courts there. What they're finding out is more people are using it for pickleball, the old tennis courts, than they have people playing tennis. So they're converting quite a few. I play with some people that come from, they winter down in Florida. One condo association they belong to has 450 pickleball players that play every week. You're starting to see city and state competitions, state level. The professionalism is expanding. I mean, you can find all sorts of stuff on YouTube about it. So I know Green Bay has converted, I think, 2 tennis courts so far to pickleball. But I look at Astor Park, I mean, there's people out there using it for tennis courts, but you don't see that many and not that often. And they got 3 courts there. So what I was thinking, could we take one and convert it? You can convert it into, there's enough room with 1 tennis court to have 2 full-size pickleball courts. But there's costs involved with that, and the director can address that. Or you can just put lines, superimpose over it. You use the tennis court net that's already there. It's an inch higher than regulations. The way I play, it really doesn't matter, an inch or a foot. But that way, I think if we advertise it, and I'd also like to see some other courts. I was out at Colburn Park. They've got 2 courts there. It almost looks like there's moss growing on the tennis court. It doesn't get any use. So would it get more use? And that's the idea with our parks, is to get people out in the parks and get them to use the parks. And the more we do that, I think the more successful as a community we are. So I'm just asking for that request tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so, you kind of gave 2 up. Is it okay if I talk? I'm sorry. Can I
Sure.
speak?
Yeah.
All right. I meant to.
I was gonna say, we can
No,
have
I-
some conversation.
Yeah, I said 1 or 2 of the courts, from what the director tells me, the cost to just paint the lines and not convert anything is rather inexpensive. You could almost do all 3 courts if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be confusing at times, maybe for the tennis players, but, I mean, they've been playing long enough, they know where you can paint them in different colors.
Yeah,
so to
well,
speak.
because actually I just went and played tennis at John Muir Park.
Okay,
And that's one of the ones where it has a pickleball court in one of the courts.
Okay.
Which it has the same net as the tennis. And it's yellow lines for the pickleball
Right.
and white lines for tennis. And I think that works really well, so you can do either or. So I'm glad that it still has it. I like to use the tennis court. So anyway, that was what I was,
Yeah,
so you're okay with it just being lines painted?
Yeah, absolutely. I play at Four Seasons on Monroe Street in Alloway, and they have 5 courts there. And at first they were no pickleball here, and then we ended up being the main money generator during the winter months because they were able to convert 3 courts into pickleball courts, and we filled them up all the time. And they even have tournaments there now. So, I think everyone's realizing, yeah, tennis is still there. It's not going away. It's an internationally recognized sport. It's very competitive, and that kind of stuff. But I think pickleball, if you look at it, I play against people in their 80s. And then I start seeing young teenagers playing with their moms and dads. And you start hearing about this, families getting out and getting together. It's not a super expensive sport. It's a darn wiffle ball, So I just, I think the city should be looking at more and more the painting of the lines, not necessarily converting the entire tennis court into a pickleball court.
I just got a question. So when you said you have 3 courts there, I think
Yeah, there's 3 full-size tennis courts.
Pickle Park or Fireland Park, it's a great idea for that too. Why
Sure.
not, right? So if you would block off one, you said you could almost fit 2 courts in one.
You
But then
actually,
you probably have to have a fence to split that off.
no. Well, what I've seen them do is they build, if you're going to convert it to 2 pickleball courts, they take where that fence, the net used to be, and they just put like a cyclone fence about yay high, just to keep the balls from going into the next court.
I see.
But if you just leave it as a tennis
Not
court.
a high thing.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like everywhere I play where they have one, it's about waist high. Just enough to keep the ball from going in and messing up the other game.
I mean, it'd be nice to know that the tennis players will accommodate this too. Do you think there'll be any kind of conflict with that?
I don't-
Personally,
Yeah,
at this point?
Yeah, I could see where people say it distracts me because they're playing kind of in the middle of the tennis court, and so on. I guess I could see that. But as long as if they get there first and they're playing tennis, then they got the court. When they give it up, someone else can go play pickleball if they want to. I mean, I don't think it'll be a big thing. It'll be interesting to see if we get a few converted to see how much they get used, if there's a way of doing that, over a month's time, say, how many people are playing tennis, how many are playing pickleball. And then the other thing is letting people know that the courts are there.
Yeah. I saw a thing on ESPN or something, and it was like a beach one, and I'm like, I couldn't turn it off. And then they went into the whole history of how it happened, the
Yep.
line painting and the rules a little bit, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out and do it.
You should. I mean, like I said, I've seen guys with
And it's
both knees wrapped up, they walk like this, but they can get out there and they can play a competitive game. So
It's not a big court.
Yeah, it's not a lot, and if you can't get to it, you can't get to it. You don't kill yourself. But I mean, I just like the competitiveness of it and the fact that such a large scale of people can play it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the old hacky sack when we were kids. We didn't have none of that. That's kind of a game that developed in a park with some kids and whatever. And you know what I mean? I think, did I ever own a tennis racket? I might have, but I never really
I never played tennis.
went out and played tennis. I had a hockey stick, so I played hockey. But it's just a transition
Right.
with the way kids
Trend.
do
Yeah.
things today.
And I'm hoping it's a trend that sticks.
Yeah.
But,
I enjoyed it. I wouldn't mind doing it. It looked really cool.
all right.
Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you.
Yeah. Stan, how much would it cost to convert the courts to pickleball courts?
Well, yeah, so there's several options of
Unofficial?
doing it. I mean, in order to convert it, what you'd have to do is to remove the tennis court nets that are there, kind of carve out a new footing locations for the pickleball nets, buy new pickleball nets, and then recolor coat everything so it looks kind of seamless. You'd also have to do some fencing, like Alder mentioned. We did that at Edison a few years ago for more courts than what we're proposing here. And I think the total cost there was about $70,000, but I'm just going off of memory.
Right.
But it was more courts. So in this situation, we don't have additional funding available. If I were to guess in this particular situation to remove one tennis court, recolor code everything, and do what I mentioned, Again, I'm spitballing, maybe $25,000 total, and you'd get 2 courts out of it, 2 pickleball and 2 tennis. Right now, our only dedicated pickleball courts are at Edison Park. We also have some ARPA money we set aside, and we're going to be building some dedicated pickleball courts at Murphy Park next year. And whenever we've received other requests like this from neighborhoods, what we've done is just what Alder Galvin mentioned is, if we don't have money to build dedicated courts, what we do is we stripe a court over an existing tennis court, use that net, and then they can either play tennis or pickleball. You can't play both, but you can pick or choose which one you want. What we found is, yeah, they get use. And what's nice about it is we can analyze the use, and if it warrants creating dedicated pickleball courts, because a lot of people are using that court consistently, we can then either strike more courts with dual-use courts, or we can build, request money for dedicated courts. So in this situation, I would recommend that you just approve the request to just paint a dual pickleball tennis court lines over 1 court at Astor. And that would allow us to see how much use it gets. If it warrants more, we can paint a 2nd court. It's very inexpensive to do that. It's just the cost of paint and staff time. We pay staff no matter what anyway, so that's a negligible cost for doing something like this. That would be my recommendation for Astor Park. We do this at many different parks. Just last year, we did it at Marquette. So a resident came forward with a request to create a pickleball court there, so we did the exact same thing at Marquette, and it gets used. Not heavily used, but it does get used. So.
Did the cost of it there give you some idea then?
No, that wasn't the dedicated one. We just striped a pickleball court over one of the
Well, that's what I
tennis
meant.
courts.
So
And
he's saying it's
it's
negligible.
a minimal cost. It's the cost of paint is all that
And
it
you
costs us.
bring it around
Yeah.
for approval?
No, something like that, it's below the dollar threshold where it needs, that's a staff decision, because it doesn't exceed the dollar threshold where we have to, come up with tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, go ahead, if you're on the committee, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna make a motion.
Oh, I was just gonna ask maybe to amend the motion,
I
perhaps.
already asked the question, or he already answered.
I wonder if we could just strike more courts in more parks. Has there been any, look at different parks to see where we could maybe also do this? Just, since it's so cheap, just to strike more, to get this going in more parks and see how it goes. Sort of maybe amend the motion to refer this to staff to see if there's more parks that we could do and then do it. Not only Astor, but those other ones, just strike since it's so cheap. And then if there's usage and it's heavy usage, then we can slowly start making them official.
I mean, we can amend the motion to do that. I wouldn't have a problem with that. The other option is to maybe be a little more proactive on getting the word out where the pickleball courts are. And I think if we kind of advertise it, a little stronger on our website or in our informational brochures, then we can just, see if that, increases the usage for the ones that are already striped. We could go either method. I wouldn't have a strong opinion.
I have a question.
Yes.
How many tennis courts are there in the city?
How many tennis courts? Oh goodness, I
How
don't
many
have
parks
that
have
number.
them?
Just in the high schools alone, those are 6 or 7 courts per high school. 2 of those are dual ones where they're park and school. And then if I were to guess, I'd say maybe 30 to 40 courts throughout the city.
Maybe more.
There's at least 60.
Well, 30 in addition to the
Yeah,
school ones.
60
yeah.
total.
So I would like to make a recommendation
Well,
that we move forward with doing one at, what park are we talking about?
Astor Park.
One at Astor Park, and then we refer to staff to look at the other parks, to do at least one in each park.
So you're proposing a motion?
Yes, that's my motion.
I would ask.
Okay, so I know that several parks have them, and I think, that's a great idea. How many parks have them? And I think it's more about how many parks have tennis courts versus how many actual tennis courts, because we're not looking to convert every tennis court, but maybe one pickleball at every park, not every court, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, that's my motion.
right? Yeah.
Is there any other conversation on this? So I
Yeah.
would ask for what we're asking for here, to convert one of the two of the tennis courts
Three.
at Astor Park to pickleball courts with an
One, two.
amendment from,
To refer to staff to look at the other existing tennis courts to do at least one at each park.
One in each park that has a tennis court.
Courts, yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah, or maybe what we could do is amend it to say, at least one in each general neighborhood versus, one in each court location.
I think we need to add the amendment to it clearly to move this forward. Do I have a second on it? Or any more conversation with it?
I think that sounds like a good idea to have it in each general, like, quadrant of the city versus saying we need one in every park, but, I mean, just to start with. So would that be, we add that amendment, or we have to vote on that
That would
first?
that'd be Stephen's motion.
To
You don't need a second.
second?
That's what I was waiting for.
But
All those
I
in
wanted to
favor
amend
say
it.
aye.
I thought I'd amend it, okay.
All those in favor say aye.
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 But if I wanted to amend it, I'm not.
We're doing the same thing.
He didn't clearly enough
Okay.
say it, that's what I was
All right,
waiting
just want to
to.
make sure.
So just for clear
That's why I
direction,
said
the
that.
motion is to analyze the tennis courts and provide at least one pickleball court in general regions or
Correct.
neighborhoods versus every court location.
Okay, yes,
Okay.
that would be what I was looking for.
All right.
I would agree to that, yes.
Just jumped the gun.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, number 2, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Galvin to consider for Astor Park a simple set of bleacher seats alongside the basketball court. To also consider installing 1 or 2 street lights to aid the residents to play basketball later than sunset. Staff?
Again, I would probably just recommend we open up to Alder Galvin, if he wants to speak. If not, I'll speak to it.
Can
We do have somebody from the
Can I ask
audience.
a quick point of clarification? So for the first one, because both alders spoke, did we really open the floor?
The floor was
No, no.
open.
No.
Okay, just want to make
That's
sure.
why I said I
Yeah.
didn't have
Sounds
to
good.
open it unless someone else wanted to.
I think.
I'll speak and then you'll have to open up the floor. Eric Dreswicki is here, he's the one that originally came to me, but I will say that in the number of years that I've lived there, that basketball court gets as much use as that waiting pool, even more so. You'll see the street, one side is parking, you'll see it loaded with cars and kids playing basketball. Sometimes it's pickup games, sometimes they're playing half-court games, and you see a crowd standing or sitting off to the side. And so when Eric came to me, I thought, yeah, why not? I mean, we've got, the parks close at 10 o'clock, but when the season starts changing, or if you get early weather, I've actually seen them go out and shovel the snow off when spring was taking a little too long to come, and then they're out there playing. So at night, it gets too dark too quick, and they can't keep playing when a lot of them, can still be out legitimately. And I think anytime, again, you got someone using our parks for good reasons, it's a good thing to have happen. And so I would just recommend that we open the floor for Eric, for him to make his
I was going to
presentation.
do that.
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
All right.
Really quick, I'll just toss it.
All in
This is just
favor?
a visual
All in
aid.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Here's the-
It's just a visual aid to get an idea of what we're kind of talking about. It's not anything fancy, don't
It's
worry.
both the same.
So, I'll be honest, where a lot of this came from is that we noticed a significant uptick in usage in the park after Firehouse Flats came in. That was right behind St. Mary's Church over there on Irwin and Cass. And what we noticed was that there's a lot more people are using the parks. A lot of times there's people waiting to play basketball, and they're just sitting on the ground because they don't have anywhere to wait. And sometimes I'd walk in there because I walk my dog, play Pokemon. We'd notice, there was somebody's, iPods or whatever got caught up by the mower, and now it's all destroyed because they left it sitting on the ground. And so one of the first things I thought was, what can we do to just make this a little bit better? I think that there's frankly enough demand to even justify looking at a second court because there aren't a lot of basketball courts in that area, and with a significant population increase, there's a lot of people that I think would be classified as at-risk population young people that could really use after-school programs and any sort of after-school activities that can benefit them, the park is a great place for that. That Parky program is amazing at Astor. I don't know what your data shows, but that's, I think, got to be one of the heavily used plans, because whenever I walk there, on my breaks and my lunches and everything, it's almost like there's an event there, but it's just a Parky program, and it's just been really successful. So I think it's a well-used park that got an uptick in population using it, and so I'd love to see some resources to accommodate it. I want to maybe amend the idea on the light. I'm not looking for a street light that's on all the time, but with the possibility of a mini grant from the GBN plus some funding from the Astor Neighborhood Association, we're going to also try to leverage with Bellin. We'd like to see if, maybe parks would support the installation, some of the installation costs, if materials could be purchased, because we think a timed light that maybe lets that play evenly till 9 or 9:30, and could it maybe even shine into the 9 square in the air thing that was installed, could be a dual purpose for one pole, and just expand that usage of that area so that we're leveraging what we've already invested in, or some assets that we got for free. I think 9 square in the air was donated.
We installed that.
Oh, you
ourselves,
get
so.
it, yeah, so, yeah, but just again, leveraging assets we've already invested in. I will mention that Firehouse Flats is actually not in our association area, but that East River Association is pretty much defunct, and so we're advocating outside of our district, but we do feel strongly that they deserve, the best possible resources. So recently we partnered with county for the food plot on that little spot near the Fox River Trail, with Ned Dorf and Aldo in the county, where those fruit trees went up. You might be familiar with that. And we, I think, provided most of the funding for that, Astor Neighborhood. So we are invested in making sure this isn't just we're asking, give us money, but if there's a way we could partner, raise some funds, even if it's not right away, just to have that be on the radar.
And just for the record, could you give your name and address?
Oh, yes. My name is Eric Drzewicki. My address is 632 South Roosevelt Street, Green Bay, 54301. I can spell Drzewicki for you if you need.
I can look it up.
All right. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this issue? You good?
No, make a motion to close the floor?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
So I better.
So, like a motion to recommend.
Could I say a few
Can I-
things first?
Oh,
Sure,
yeah.
why don't you?
Yeah, let me
Cost
just kind
of
of.
the seats, maybe.
Yeah, let me just add to this so that you kind of know what expenses come along with it. So as far as installing bleachers at the court, I don't have a problem or any issues with that. In fact, I did check with our park staff, and we do have one unused 3-row bleacher. So I am fine with just moving that out there if that's what the council and committee would like us to do. We'll just place it there, and it'll just stay there until the time when the usage doesn't warrant it anymore. Now, the only additional cost would be we're going to probably put it on a gravel bed, just so that we don't have to move it every time we have to mow the lawn. We could look at down the road to paving it, but there'd be, that might cost several $1,000s to pave a concrete pad underneath that. But for now, we would just put gravel underneath at no cost, or very minimal cost. As it relates to the lighting, that's a bigger topic that I guess as a committee and council, you have to decide if that's what you want to pursue at all. The two options are you put, the cheapest option is to put like security lights out there, similar to what we have in a lot of our parks. Those are WPS rental lights. So there's a very minimal cost to install those lights, and those are the big wood poles with the Cobra head fixture. Minimal cost to install it. It'll cost a few $1,000s, but then you're locked into a 20-year contract with WPS, and you pay about $18 per month on that fixture. So that's how you do it. So it's a very inexpensive cost up front, but down the road, you have to add that to your city budget. The downfall to lighting like that is you cannot control the timing. It's just on all night long. So I would not recommend going with a lighting system like that, even though it's cheaper to install, just because people could be out there at 2, 3 in the morning and play basketball because there's a light there. Obviously, that would cause a lot of concerns in the neighborhood if that were to occur. So if we were to consider lighting, it would have to be some sort of a sports lighting. So if we're gonna light it, it would have to be adequate enough to actually provide the amount of lights that are required for sports lighting. Now, when you do that, the costs are fairly expensive. It wouldn't be cheap to do that, but you can put a timer on it. The other thing that you do need to consider when you're looking at sports lighting in a park like this is proximity to residences. We've done ball field lighting. This would be similar to ball field lighting, but probably a little bit lower, and definitely not as many lights. But you always have the issue where there's glare into the front windows of whichever way that light is pointing. Let's face it, wherever we put it, it's pointing towards houses in some manner. Now, we can put a screen on it to control it as best as we can, but we do run into issues occasionally with that. I did not research the cost for installing that type of light fixture here at this park. If that's something that you're interested in pursuing, I can generate a cost and bring it back to the park committee for discussion, but it would be in the tens of thousands of dollars to install 1 or 2 sports light poles and fixtures there, because we'd have to run electric service to it. Not sure how that would all be handled and where that service would come from. So I could generate a cost estimate and we can discuss it, but it would have to be added to our bond request next year. We don't have funding for it.
Yes, I'm going to make a comment here. I know over in the Farland Park thing and the issues of the basketball courts being where they are, and that's one of the issues. Not so much that, it's the parking of everybody parking the streets in and stuff. Now, we may not have that, but also what arises because of that situation there is the basketball noise of the constant, which was somewhat irritable to some of the people there. So that was another issue why we were moving that away from that area. But bringing the lighting into that is my concern. As much as I agree with using the parks as much as we can use them, but we got to make sure that the residents around there aren't mad that they're on an extra hour past dark, creating a different problem, So that would be my concern. Melinda, Alder Eck, sorry.
So what I'm thinking is, should we make it as 2 separate motions?
Yeah.
So one on the bleacher and then one on the lights?
That's what I would recommend,
Okay.
unless you want to approve both.
Yeah, because I'm not making an official motion, this is what I'm just gonna put out, that I think that it makes sense to do the bleachers because you already have them, right? And then maybe get more information on costs of the lighting. And then, as Eric had mentioned, the possibility of the neighborhood helping or grants or whatever you're looking at. Does that make sense to?
Is that a refer to staff possibly?
Yeah.
That part of it?
Yeah, so, here's a recommended option for how to word it. To approve the installation of bleachers at the basketball court in Astor Park and research basketball lighting alternatives to be reviewed at a future park committee meeting.
Sounds good, that's my motion.
Do I have a second?
That's exactly what I was going to ask for. I think in the meantime, then, the Astor Park Association can meet with fund people. People are going to have some funds they may be willing to donate. And then when the city gets back with the cost, they'll have something firm they can take to those donors, potentially put the lights in.
I'll second.
It's a bright idea.
Oh, of course.
We have a motion on the table to support it with the actions of both sides of the question, and a second by Alder Stevens. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nate? Okay. Great.
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks for your input and your work with some good ideas. Number 3, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Scannell on the usage, maintenance, and hours of park shelters and bathrooms. Do you want to let him speak first? Or?
Yeah, it's up to you if you'd like
Yeah,
to.
I don't have much to say other than, from time to time, there's always been people who've been, we just don't have the staffing and the other concerns with opening up the bathrooms that we have, the facilities we have in all our parks. And periodically, we've looked at how, if there's ways we can problem solve this and increase the usage. And so I just was bringing this up at this time to see, at this point in time, is there more we can do to increase the usage and maintenance of our bathroom facilities? And I spoke to Director Dishite, and he said get it on the agenda, and he'd report something to us, so.
Yeah, so I'd
We're having a
happy,
conversation.
yeah, I'd be
Some
happy.
information on it.
Be happy to add to that. So, yeah, this has been discussed for many years. We've talked about it at this committee prior, also several times in the years that I've been with the city. Let me just give you a little background information about what our staffing levels are and how many shelters we have with restrooms, because in the past, the conversation has always been geared towards, let's open all the bathrooms in all the parks because they're there and available. So not including Bay Beach, we have 36 shelters with restrooms in our park system. So on average, it takes about a half an hour for 2 people to lock the restrooms, clean them, and empty the trash, and then time to drive to the next location. So that's average. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes, sometimes it takes 45 minutes, depending on how messy the bathrooms are and how much work is needed to clean up the garbage, etc. So we currently only have 2 night shift crews that do this work on Saturday through Thursday. There's one on the east side, there's one on the west side. Crew members consist of 1 full-time staff member and 1 seasonal staff member or part-time. The crews work from 2:30 to 10:30. And on Fridays, because of how the staffing levels are, on Fridays we only have 1 crew. So there's not 2 crews on Friday. There's only 1. So if we were to open close all the restrooms in the park on a daily basis, the crews that we have, when we're fully staffed and they're not on vacation, etc., they would have to start closing the restrooms at 2:30 and go right up to 10:30, and even then they might not get them all done. We don't have enough staff to accommodate that request. And then if you start closing the restrooms at 2:30, that defeats the purpose of even trying to keep them open later. So, and then keep in mind, we also have a morning crew or a day crew which opens them up. And also we have 2 crews there. So 1 on the east side, 1 on the west side. They probably don't spend as much time unlocking as they do locking and cleaning. But the morning crew, what they do is they unlock. They make sure that everything was done the night before. Sometimes they have to do additional cleaning if it all doesn't get done. But then they go around the park and they pick up the litter and the trash around the park. So they're kind of doing other tasks that the night crews can't do because they can't see all the litter and trash. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So if we were to consider opening all of the shelters, I mean, conservatively, I'd have to say we'd have to double our crew size, which affects our general budget. We just don't have the staff to do it. So that being said, we did make some changes this year to help try to find a compromise from what the alders have requested in the past, what the neighbors want, or the residents want, and what we can actually accomplish with our staff. So I apologize I didn't have this in the agenda packet. I just created it today. I will have this included in the council agenda packet for next week. But what this explains is kind of how we open our bathroom shelters now. So currently, or historically, what we did is we only opened bathroom shelters if there was a scheduled activity in the park or an event, such as the playground program or somebody has a large event in the parks. In addition, we open the restrooms when there's splash pads and wading pools. So any park that has a splash pad or wading pool, we open the restrooms. And then finally, if there's any rentals. So if a shelter is rented or an athletic field is rented, and then we'll go in and open the restrooms for those individuals. We don't do it for people who just show up and practice on the field. So if they don't actually reserve the field, we don't open the bathrooms to them. That's what we've been able to accommodate for years and years with the staffing levels we have, and that's really all we can accommodate. What we did this year to find a compromise is, one thing that takes a lot of time also is opening and closing shelters. So for rentals. So when people rent these shelters, not only are we cleaning and opening and closing the bathrooms for the shelter rentals, but then we have to clean and do the rest of the shelter also. That takes up a lot of time. So what we did this year is we limited the amount of shelters that we have available to the public to rent. So we only allow rentals with some exceptions, but generally we're only able to rent on Saturdays and Sundays. And we're very specific which shelters and which days. So there isn't a single shelter that we have rentals on Saturday and Sunday. We pick kind of the shelters that get the most use historically, and we say you either rent this shelter on Saturday or Sunday, and the other isn't an option. So by doing that, it freed up our staff time considerably. So now these restrooms on this list that I provided, we actually open these on Saturdays and Sundays, even if there's no rentals. So we are trying to find that compromise. We are opening some of our bathrooms more than we've done in the past. And we do have this list available on the city website so that the public can clearly see, which shelters have restrooms open and when, if it's not a traditional shelter rental. So I think when Alder Stanley and I talked, I kind of told him we had this in place, and I think the discussion was, well, let's just kind of get the information out. If the alders aren't aware of the changes we've made, this is a good time to at least let people know that we made some changes. We'll analyze it at the end of the season, and we'll see, did it work, did it not work? Are there things we can do differently to open more restrooms next year? We'll find that out at the end of the season. But a lot of it depends on, are we able to staff our seasonal staff? It's really hard to fill these night positions. Right now, we only have 2 full-time staff and 1 seasonal doing the work. So already we're shorthanded. Now, there's a potential that we're going to be hiring somebody soon because they're kind of in process. But we're not fully staffed with our seasonal night crews right now. It's a really hard shift to fill. So that's a summary of where we're at, what we've done, and some changes we've made.
No, I just have a question. Also, is there a way to implement some of this duty into the parkies?
And they do that to a certain extent. I mean, they're responsible to clean up their areas.
I would
They
think
will
that would
help
be
out. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, we've been doing that for years. And
Okay.
James can kind of talk a little bit more about how they handle it. But they do assist, and that's part of, historically, that's already built into this equation.
So not just playground leaders, but also the user groups that we have in the evening. Sometimes they will help with different, cleaning and stuff, just to be good stewards of, hosting their games at that facility. But it just really depends. Like, for example, what he left now, but what Eric brought up. I mean, Astor we had Einstein Project over there this last week. There was 170 kids that attended this playground Einstein Project event. I call it an event because so many kids were there, but it's just a playground program. So to ask them, the playground leaders, to also, be responsible for, it just depends on the situation.
So I think it's easy for them to just lock up, but it's not always easy for them to clean up after that. It's just very time consuming, and they have a job to do, running the playground program. So they do what they can, but then our crews come back and kind of do the rest.
And their ages are the difference of they're adults, but not,
Yeah, the age group for the parking programs, they're qualified to do this work. We wouldn't have any concerns. It's just they have other duties, so they help out where they can, but we can't put all of the duties on them. It's just not feasible and still run the program.
I would, Alder Eck.
So there's a lot of park shelters that are rented over the weekend, so they're open. The restrooms are open. I know that because I've called the book and it's like, you know, you gotta call in advance because there's a lot there booked. So they are open a lot on the weekends and stuff. For me, I would make a motion to deny the request just based on the amount of manpower it would take to do that. That's,
There's no request.
oh, you said
Possible
consideration with
request.
possible action.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But there'd be a
It's kind of an
motion to
informational
receive
question. I
so,
think.
Sort of, kind of. If we could just refer staff that, you know, you've got this in place to report back out the analysis at the end, and if we could focus on a way to include Joanne's into the east side, into that regular, because of the skate park. And if there's a way to perhaps even include neighborhood associations to adopt a park. I mean, I know neighborhood associations go around and clean their neighborhoods all the time. If we could get them to help with adopting a park, perhaps some of those cleaning duties then could go more on the morning shift, and that would help the evening shift, which means we could have more bathrooms open because they wouldn't have to be closing those so soon, because they'd have less bathrooms to clean, the evening ones, because the morning ones would be picking them up. So just, I mean, I'm sure Dan is great at juggling all this around, you know, just to give staff that direction to report back and see what we can problem solve going ahead, to see how many more we can open up. And I would like to focus on Joanne's because it's a skate park that's used, it draws in people well beyond the city of Green Bay. So it's a facility that I think would be good to have a bathroom open more regularly.
Alder?
okay. Well, I mean, it kind of sounds like you're changing a little bit, maybe the request, maybe focusing in on, what was it, Joanne's and what else?
Well, the request is, I don't have it exactly in front of me. The
It says
request is-
consideration with possible request, or possible action on the request by Alder Scannell on the usage, maintenance, and hours of park shelters / bathrooms.
Right, and the director is already taking possible action with, I gotta back up now. Some of the things that Dan said, I'm trying to remember.
Coburn Firemen's.
Coburn Fire, right, and so, just to, and he's already got some things implemented. We're gonna see how that goes at the end of the season. So just to come back with that report, and adding to that, if there's a way we can incorporate neighborhood associations to help out with this, and a way to focus on particularly Joanne's Park, to get that open more often because of the skate park. So the communication was broad-ended, and it's still kind of broad-ended because we want the report. But I just want those two specifics, after hearing the report, if we could include that in staff, give staff that direction.
As far as the neighborhood associations, I personally think that's probably unrealistic to add that on. I know for my neighborhood,
Well, it's,
we
you're
clean
not
up
forced.
after ourselves, but we, you know, as far as asking people to go, it's hard enough to get board members. You know, I'm just being realistic here. It is hard, and to
Well-
have that added on, I don't know that it's gonna happen.
We're not forced labor here. I
Well-
know there are neighborhood associations that go around and do cleaning already. They might be very willing to help clean up parks. I mean, it's a request.
Yeah.
And it's just a request to go and ask. If they say no, then we take that out of the equation. If they say yes, we add that into the equation and see how it can help getting more bathrooms open. That's all.
But they
There's
also have to
there's
lock
no-
it.
Huh?
They also have to lock and unlock then, right? Isn't that part of it?
No, the neighborhood association, no. They wouldn't be locking and unlocking, they wouldn't be cleaning, because part of the morning job for the crews unlocking is to clean up the park. If you take that away, they can focus more on cleaning the bathrooms if neighborhood associations will help clean up parks, litter around the park.
What I see here is a very open-ended request for no action because there's no data. I would recommend we we send this back to staff or receive and place on file for more information.
If I could, I mean, and you can ask Dan, I bugged him a lot about this, because there was a time when the Green Bay Police Department had a corps of individuals called cadets. And we had cadets assigned to all the parks, you know, East, one west. Their job was to visit the parks. And during the summer, they would lock and unlock the bathrooms. Now, they didn't do any cleaning or anything else like that, but it took the time off of the staff's hands that they didn't have to do it. They knew that technically an entity from the police department was checking on the parks throughout the day, and into the afternoon shift, they would close it up, you know, on the afternoon shift, open it up on the day shift. Now, we don't have a cadet program anymore, so that's gone by the wayside. But as a guy in his 60s who's been caught short at a number of our city parks, and now with grandchildren that I take to various city parks because of the different playground setups and everything, and they've got to go to the bathroom, and it's real frustrating to know as a taxpayer, I paid to have running water, and it's locked up behind a door and I can't get to it, you know, with my grandson or if I have to go. And that just to me is like, it's crazy, because I've been to so many other communities where they find a way of getting their bathrooms open so that the people that pay the taxes to have those bathrooms can actually use them. And so I appreciate what this is that Dan is trying to get some parks open. They want to see how it works. They're still researching, you know, there may be other ways of having these bathrooms with some kind of a locking system that automatically opens it or locks after it's used by someone. You know, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of technology out there and things like that. But I would like to see at least this go forward with what Director Deschanel has handed out, and then they have the staff still continue to look for other ways of seeing if we can find some other ways of getting more parks open to the public. I mean, the last thing, I mean, I don't know if you've gotten it, but I get complaints about kids urinating in the park because the bathrooms are locked up. You know, and what do you do? If a kid's got to go, kid's got to go. You know, and tell him to run 6 blocks home or hop on his bike, you know, I mean, it's just not realistic. So I just think the city would be better served that they can continue to look forward to try and find some more solutions to this situation. And I'm not big on renting, you know, I know some communities have porta potties. But, you know, you get the problems with those too. It's the same thing as if you leave your bathroom open. Some idiot wrecks it, tips it over, you know, it's like, geez.
Yeah.
I think a refer to staff just covers it all. I think Dan is, you know, heard, and if you don't want to add particular direction to staff, that's fine. I think Dan is heard and he can do that well on his own. He doesn't really need staff direction for that. But to refer to staff to proceed with what they're doing, report back on how it went and what steps we might be able to take going forward.
These already been done, right?
Huh?
These already been done.
Yeah, that's already.
It's in the process.
Okay.
No, it's already implemented, and that's what we're
Right.
doing. So
I just want to add to the conversation here a little bit. You know, recently in the budget, we've just finally got all of our parks staffed. You know, I think we're being a little ahead of ourselves here, and we got to
happy
give
about
Dan and the staff and the council a lot of credit for at least getting all of our parks staffed. Now we got new ideas. Now we try to get the most out of what we just invested in. And of course, I think that comes with the growth of getting everybody back and getting our parks running up to 100% again. And a good, I mean, credit to Dan and his staff for, you know, and us for creating the problem of not being able to staff the parks. So now we just have new ideas that I think we got to tackle. And I agree. You know, I park over there too. It's never open, but you know, but we don't have parkies there neither. So there's a staff that's even behind yet more. But we're tackling that. So I'm going to entertain a motion.
Okay.
Motion to receive, motion to refer to staff.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
Report back after the season.
Yeah.
All those,
Is that fair?
yeah, I can
what
report
you
back.
recommend?
Yeah, I would say refer to staff, and then we can report back at the end of the season, and also discuss what changes can be made for 2024.
Second?
all those in favor say aye.
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 Nay? Okay. And I say aye also. Number 4, consideration with possible action on the approval of an amendment to the Fox River Trail easement with the Wisconsin Public Service Corporation for the trail section just west of Monroe Avenue.
So the city currently has a trail easement with Wisconsin Public Service where Fox River meets the East River, and it's just north of the KI Center. So the city installed a 6-foot wide brick trail with lighting and benches decades ago. That trail's been there for quite a while. So WPS is currently undergoing a large remediation project on their property from Jefferson Street east to Monroe Avenue. And as part of that project, they've already removed a large parking lot on their property. Along with, they removed our trail and also the benches and lighting and everything like that to allow them to do the remediation work. So they'll be replacing the 6-foot wide brick trail with a 10-foot wide asphalt trail with a concrete band along the sides to match the trail just to adjacent to it. And then they will also be relocating the light poles and fixtures to accommodate the new trail alignment after the trail is built. And all of this cost will be on Wisconsin Public Service. There will be no cost to the city for this work to be completed. And because the trail is wider now than it was before, the trail does not fit within the boundaries of the original easement. So what this third amendment is doing is it's just setting new boundaries for the parameters or the location of the easement to accommodate the additional trail width. So really all that they did was give us a little extra sliver of land on the east side and an extra sliver of land on the west side, and everything else stayed the same. So in the amendment, you'll see a map along with a legal description of the new boundaries. So I would recommend approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That's unanimously
This is why
passed.
you're here, the next one, right?
Number 5, consideration with possible action on accepting an AmeriCorps program funding grant for $374,673 to continue the Green Bay Conservation Corps program through the 2024 season.
So as you all know, in 2022, the city received an AmeriCorps program grant to implement the Conservation Corps program. The grant award was for a 3-year commitment, but the grant requires that each year the city submit a revised grant application with a revised budget for the upcoming year. So then the application and the budget is then reviewed by AmeriCorps and approved, and then a new grant contract must be signed every single year through the duration of this 3-year commitment. So last year, the city received a total of $378,745 in grant funding and had to provide a match of $120,407. Of that $120,000 in matching funds, the city added, sorry, I'm just turning off my phone here. So
That's you.
that is me, sorry about that. So of the $120,000 in matching funds, last year the city added $86,425 to our budget. The remaining $33,000 or $34,000 was all in-kind services that was built into the budget. So last year we added our budget to $86,000. In the second year grant application, it's slightly different. Some of the costs have changed. We've restructured things a little bit differently. And then finally, a lot of those in-kind matches were kind of a one-time match that didn't apply for this year. They're just not available. So this year, the city will receive $378,083 in grant funding, which is a decrease of about $662. And then the city's match will have to increase to $124,929, which is an increase of $4,522 over last year's match. And like I said, many of the in-kind services accounted for last year are not available. So this year, we are going to have to budget, if we accept this grant and award the contract, we will have to add $115,676 to our budget, which is an increase of just over $29,000 over last year. So just by accepting this grant contract, we do have to add to our city budget for 2024 by about $30,000. We still have about $9,250 in in-kind services that we were able to build into the budget, but that was it. So the major change that we're proposing in this second year budget is we're increasing the staffing level. So for those of you who know Maria, she is our Conservation Corps coordinator. Her current duties are to not only manage the grant and to hire all of the staff and to do all of the marketing and promotional. Her job is also to figure out what jobs the crews have to do and then manage all of the crews. It's just really not a feasible option for her to continue to do that long term. So what we did is we added a second full-time person, city staff member to our table of organization, and that position will be responsible to kind of manage the day-to-day operations of the crews, helping and assist with the training of the crews and just supervisory duties for the crews. That will allow Maria to focus her energies on recruiting, grant management, and promotional and volunteer coordination also, because she does a lot with volunteer coordination. So in addition, we are changing our seasonal position. So in 2023, this year, we have 6 full-time members and 15 seasonal members. What we're changing it to in this new proposal is 8 full-time members, 5 part-time members, which is what, like a 6-month term, roughly?
It can either be a 6-month term or half-time for the whole year. So it's based on a total number of hours, so it's 900 hours within the whole year. So they could do it in 6 months working full-time capacity or do a full year working at like 20, 25 hours.
And then 10 summer seasonal positions. So in essence, we added 2 new positions to the structure also. So those are the reasons that the budget increased in addition to losing some of the in-kind services. So we did discuss adding the new position to the Park Department's table of organization. That was reviewed at the Personnel Committee last week, and they did approve that, adding it to the table of organization. Now, by doing that, a little bit of additional money does have to be added to the budget, an additional $15,000 over and above what the grant contract requires. So the Personnel Committee thought that the value that we get out of this is worth the additional budget. So they approved it. It goes to council next week for discussion and review, along with our discussion here. That will also go next week. So what I'm asking for approval tonight is to award the grant contract, but not adding the second position, because there are 2 different committees that make that decision. So by accepting this grant, what you are committing to is that at budget time, we are going to increase our budget by $29,253,000 over last year, just by committing to accepting the grant.
Conversation.
Is that including the extra 15,000 for that additional staff?
No, that's kind of a separate discussion
Okay.
that the Personnel Committee is kind of dealing with as part of their recommendation. But that second position is not funded through the grant. It's funded through the city as part of our match. And so that's why it is somewhat optional. I guess I don't necessarily want to use that word optional because it's a real need for that program. We can't expect Maria to continue to operate the way that it's going with the workload. It just isn't efficient and it's just too much to do. So I will say that from a budgetary standpoint, it's optional, but from a general need, it's required, so.
Is it?
Yes.
Do you and, you know, maybe this is putting you on the spot, and I'm kind of thinking I know the answer, but you feel it's a successful program?
It's been tremendously successful. So we've set goals for the year, and we've surpassed those goals, and the year isn't done yet. So we're gonna, and if you want specific numbers and details on that, we can have Maria speak to that. But we've surpassed every goal that we were trying to achieve, plus we've had a lot more volunteers coming to work with the AmeriCorps program and to volunteer their services within the park system. In addition, we've had more public outreach than I think we initially imagined. So it's been tremendously successful. Many of you have seen the results firsthand, but if you have specific questions, obviously Maria can answer that.
Was there
Can
anything?
I make a motion to open the floor?
We don't have
Oh,
to
she's
show the
staff.
Oh, she's staff?
Yeah, if you want to come up, we would
Yeah.
at least hear about it, right?
So yeah, just some of the accomplishments, like Dan mentioned. So required by AmeriCorps, we have to set what are called performance measures, which are targets of what we're able to accomplish, something measurable. AmeriCorps is very data-based. So we set it at 75 acres of habitat improvement, 2 miles of trail improvement, and leveraging 100 volunteers. As of March, when we pulled our numbers, we are over 100 acres of habitat improved, just about 2 miles and a quarter is like 2.19, something like that miles. So over the 2 mile mark, and we've already had about 150 to 200 volunteers. So we've surpassed our goals exponentially. And then as far as the media, just, you know, and next week we're meeting with NOAA's coming to meet with us, and then we have the Secretary of the DOA coming to meet with our program as well. We're one of the programs that gets featured on a state level for AmeriCorps quite frequently. Have been to Madison and the Capitol and met with a lot of representatives, and the director of AmeriCorps has come and met with us as well. So as a media level, we've gotten, like Dan said, a lot more than we thought we would. And then finally, I think a really crucial thing this time is just our recruitment. We were able to fill all of our slots by summer. So by June 5th, we had 100% recruitment, and so we have all of our member slots filled. So I've already had people reaching out asking when I'm opening the fall positions, wanting to apply for our fall positions. So just the feedback that we're getting is quite a bit more than what we anticipated, which you can see in the budget numbers. We were hopeful that we'd hit full recruitment, but we were kind of going off of the norm of what we're seeing nowadays, that we weren't going to probably hit full recruitment, and then we did, and so it's kind of a happy growing pain that we have.
That's awesome.
So I have a question. So, you know, this is a fairly new program, so I'm learning a little bit more about it. You know, this was created to maintain such as the projects that you said, you know, by public volunteer thing, but it still cost the city as its role is more money to implement it, correct? Just clarifying. You know, if this considers to grow, I mean, is this stuff that the Parks Tree Service could have done anyway?
The answer to that is no. So with this AmeriCorps program, we specifically set it up, and it's kind of required as part of the grant, that they're not tackling day-to-day maintenance activities that our park crews are currently doing to offset what they do. What they focus on 100% of their time is all things we didn't do before that we should have probably been doing. You know, trail maintenance. We never did trail maintenance. We relied 100% on volunteers to come in and maintain our trails, and you know, it showed. We needed, you know, a lot of work on our trails. Our conservation efforts with the staffing we have are very minimal to none. You know, the only conservation projects we handled as a city prior to this program was working with the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation on their efforts and their donations to the city, which just strictly related to the Bear Creek Greenway. So now we're able to focus on other efforts in addition to the wildlife sanctuary. So we're based out at the wildlife sanctuary, that's where the program is run. So they are doing so much work at the sanctuary that it just never got done. It was, I hate to say it was ignored, but it was because we didn't have the staff to do it.
I'll make a motion to approve the funding for the grant.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. You forgot you were the director, right? Or the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was good seeing you Saturday.
Yes, it was nice to be back.
Number 6, consideration with possible action on approving a stormwater outfall access easement with the Green Bay Area Public School District for Southwest I.
So you'll see a map in your agenda package which shows the specifics of what's being proposed here. So the school district has funding in place to do a major renovation behind Southwest High to the athletic field area. And as part of their project, they're required to build a stormwater management pond, which isn't there now. It's just required with the amount of site disturbance that they're doing there. And it's adjacent to the city-owned greenway. And they're requesting approval to slightly build a portion of the southern edge of the pond along with installing an outfall pipe on city property. The outfall structure will replace an existing outfall structure that's currently there. So right now there's some drains in the track area that just open drain into the greenway. This will replace it, and what the pond will do is it'll actually slow the water down and then discharge it out of that pipe in a slower rate, which will reduce the amount of erosion that's happening along the outfall pipe right now. So what they're doing is actually going to improve the situation. Typically, we would bring the proposed easement agreement to you for your review with the actual language of the easement. But in this situation, the school district did not realize that this was on city property when they engineered it and got their permits and got a contractor on board. So they are almost ready to go with this project, and they're just asking for a fairly quick approval. With us meeting only once a month, this was the only way to accommodate their schedule without drastically postponing their project. We have reviewed the request. Our staff has been out there. We're 100% in agreement with this request. We had some concerns about some large oak trees in the greenway, but we are satisfied that those oak trees are going to be protected in a manner that our forester is okay with, because we've had some discussions with the engineer and the school district on what our expectations are. So if you're in support of this also, I would recommend that you approve it contingent upon the review and approval of the final easement agreement by the law department. And that will, the law department will set the terms and the conditions of the easement. You're just, in essence, telling staff we're okay with this, go ahead and work out the details.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's passed. I was going to ask if anybody else in the crowd had anything to say on it, because it sounded like them. Just joking. Number 7, consideration with possible action on approving up to $250,000 for the Bay Beach Development account to hire a contractor to complete the necessary site work for the Nebula Z ride at Bay Beach Amusement Park. Staff.
Yeah, so if you recall at a previous Parks Committee, we discussed the fact that we bid out the site work associated with this project and no contractors bid on it. So the Friends Friends of Bay Beach Amusement Park were very generous, and they decided to find their own contractors and construct the site work and donate it to the city after it's completed. So what you approved previously was a design, construction, and dedication agreement with the Friends of Bay Beach, which allowed them to do that and donate it to us. Since then, the Friends of Bay Beach did secure the bulk of the contractors, but the work hasn't quite been done yet. The reason that we put this on the agenda is kind of a worst case scenario. Let's say all of the contractors back out for some reason, I mean, they don't have a contract with the city, this is a donation through the Friends of Bay Beach, this $250,000 would be what it would cost for us to hire our own contractor to do the remaining work that's left from now through mid-July, because the new ride is getting delivered in mid-July. And if we don't have the site work ready in time by then, we can't install it. So I'm fairly confident that a lot of the work is going to get done, but there might be pieces of it that might not get done. So for example, we're still not sure if we'll have a contractor on board to pour all of the concrete flat work. That's still up in the air. If we work it out, we won't have to pay for it because the Friends will find a contractor to donate the services. If it doesn't work out, we already have worked with Public Works and they'll allow us to use their yearly pavement contractor. They have an annual pavement contractor under contractual services. And we will be able to utilize them to do the flat work if the Friends can't find anybody. So we're hopeful that very little of this $250,000 will get used in the next month, if any of it. But this gives us the flexibility to use that funding if we have to hire contractors in the next month. Because if we wait to get it approved at the next meeting, it'll delay construction and we won't be able to install the ride in a timely manner.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I was gonna open for conversation first.
There's nobody here to open.
Between us.
You have a question?
I have questions, yes. So,
Well, you know what, I can
what
say
happens
second.
to the money if it doesn't get used?
It is in the Bay Beach Development account. So that money was put there from revenues that, excess revenues from previous years from the park itself. So the money we make there goes into this development account, and then we disperse it for different projects specific related to Bay Beach. So that money has to stay at Bay Beach, it can't be diverted to other park facilities. So if we don't spend it here, we're gonna allocate it towards other development projects at Bay Beach. The money's there, it's available. It's not allocated for a specific project right now, and
Okay.
it wouldn't detract from anything else we're doing.
So it sounds like you almost know that there's nobody to complete the flat work. Is that correct?
There's a possibility. It's not known 100% yet, but I would say it's a 50% chance that we might have to hire a contractor to do the flat work. Now, how much of the 250 is just the flat work, I don't know. This cost included installing the footing for the ride, which is a massive footing. It involves all of the electrical work, it involves all of the fill and compaction. So it's kind of all-encompassing, everything associated with the cost, in addition to the flat work. So, you know, even if we have to hire somebody to do the flat work, it's just a portion of that $250,000.
But it's really a backup plan.
And it's a backup plan, we're hoping we don't have to use it.
Well, I'd like to second his motion.
Let's start with, do we have a motion, and exactly what was it?
Motion to move forward with approval.
Okay, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's passed. Informational.
I have a division report included in the packet. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I have nothing else to add, other than Kids Day is coming up.
Oh, yes, do we have
When is it,
bands?
on the 26th.
Monday, the 26th,
So you
so
want-
next Monday.
You wanna
Can we
just
get
give a-
bands?
What's that now?
Are we gonna get bands? People are asking me for bands.
Where did
Usually
get
you give us
them? Where did
bands,
you get
so I
them
thought-
last year?
Well,
Yeah.
of course, in advance, yes. Yeah.
If you want bands, you
Where do we
can.
get them?
I can get you, well, I can get them right now, after the meeting, or we can get them to you before Monday.
Well,
Sooner the
if I
better.
could get them tonight, that'd be super, just because I've
Same.
had people asking me already.
Yeah, because of the way the neighborhood association, like, bi-monthly meetings work, it didn't work out to get you guys bands for Kids Day, because we met in May. And we
Yeah.
didn't have bands yet, but we can get vans out to neighborhood associations that need them. We have them up in our office, or they're at each of the pools, Bay Beach, Wildlife Sanctuary, they're at the libraries, they're all over Green Bay.
So I gotta go to Bay Beach to get them.
Well, I don't
You
need a
could
ton,
go to
I
Bay
just
Beach
want a
if you
few,
want.
a handful.
I can run and grab you some right after this.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, but
appreciate
yeah.
it.
But
That'd be
Monday,
great.
Monday Kids Day is really exciting. I just want to say we have a really good lineup of activities throughout the entire day. So there's not a time throughout the day when there's not something that is going on within our park system, within the organizations that partner with us throughout the city. We just have a really good lineup of things for this Kids Day. It's really exciting. A lot of the community members, maybe when we did it in the past, they weren't quite ready to get back into these large-scale events. Everybody has came out now, and it's been very well received to kind of it's going to be a really cool Kids Day.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the heck out of going out and handing them out to kids along the street and then now all the parks, you know what I mean, just on my bike. It's like, oh, here you go, oh, can we get more, you know?
Yep. I can
And that
definitely
was fun, you know, to deliberately hand them out
Mhm.
and not have people to have to track them down, especially when they're,
And we have it in all the locations when they go to these locations on Kids Day.
yeah.
Like, we never turn away a kid that doesn't have a wristband. We have more wristbands available that day if they need them, so either way, we can get them to you.
I'll take 50 to 100,
Sure.
right? How many you want? 100?
Yeah, well,
I can get it
50 is probably enough,
Yeah.
but,
Okay.
okay, so make a motion to receive and place on file, director's
Second.
report?
Yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
Yep. I have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, next
Or,
meeting.
sorry, your next meeting is July 26th, is that in goal?
That's when it's
I was
currently
looking at the
scheduled.
date earlier today, but okay.
And everything goes to city council.
And everything goes to city council next Tuesday, correct? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Leave meeting. Yes, I gotta go to the bathroom. So. Here, you wanna-
We need to switch the water, too.